Not too long ago, we spoke to a graduate of the Academy who was starting a career in stone carving. Then we spoke to an experienced faceter and pondered bad design last month. So I thought it would be apt if we this month speak to a designer and jewelry artist who has really taken the medium of gemstones and the technique to carve them in a new, unique direction, taking us on a journey to question what they are and can be used for. She's an Estonian jewelry designer, self-taught gemstone carver and contemporary artist with a fantastic oeuvre of work, with whom I will discuss the journey to becoming a jeweler, her adaptation of traditional techniques and future endeavors. So without further ado, I very much would like to welcome Julia Maria Künnap. Thank you for joining me, Julia.
Thank you.
The first question, Julia, to start, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
I'm a jewelry artist. I think I can say that. I make unique pieces in most traditional jewelry materials, which is like gemstones and precious metals, like gold and silver, mostly gold. And well, I try to find my own way in this.
And you are an art graduate and a graduate from the Estonian Academy of Arts, so the jewelry art department. What drew you to the artistic field in the first place, and then in specific to jewelry later on?
I guess it was, rather simple. And everybody likes to draw, or maybe not everybody, but most kids like to draw. So I guess I was drawing and making things all my childhood. I went to art schools and drawing classes, art schools, and it just continued. So it was. I had a few choices, a few different ones. Like one was chemistry, one was art, and the third one was aviation, to become a pilot. But it was my choice was easy because the exams to the art academy were the first ones. So I got into the art academy, so I dropped the other options.
That's interesting. If the aviation would have been first, maybe you would have been a pilot.
Yes, exactly, or chemist, scientist, or something.
And then the step sort of from other artistic mediums to thinking about jewelry and then perhaps these smaller objects. Do you know what pulled you in that direction?
Yeah, it's just, I think I've always been good in crafts. I'm not into. I have never been into jewelry like in decorative way. Like I'm not super feminine. Like a fashionista or nothing like that. And I think it kind of felt secure for me. Kind of safe solution because I love sculpture very much. But I thought that sculpture was too difficult, also like physically too difficult and too abstract. And so I had no idea about contemporary jewelry, but I had to say in advance, when we had these preparation courses for exams, I had to say like what do I want to study. And so I just asked like, can I come back? Can I say it to you the next day? And then during the night I thought, I went back and asked like, can you study jewelry? She said, oh, okay, metal art then, metal department then.
So your work has featured a lot of gems and you are a self-taught gem cutter. Now, what drew you to then use the medium of stone for your work, and how do you choose maybe these gemstones you then work with?
I had extremely good education from the academy, from Professor Kadri Mälk. She had made us very good courses of every possible technique, starting from filigree and ending with platinum. Giovanni Corvaia gave us a platinum workshop also. There was like so many things. So we also had a gem cutting course, and the practical thing we had to cut gems, but cabochons and flat plates or something. So it wasn't much, but it was just what you needed, to get the taste of it, And we had very good, I think, very good gemology course. So also we didn't learn everything, but we had the idea how to identify gems and what's the meaning, or what's also the esoteric meaning behind them, how's the history. So I think that's what a good education is, that you get a taste, and if you have interest, or you search forward. And I think I had already graduated my MA, and I think it was like 5 years later something I got into stones. But it's a kind of like an anecdotic story, because I was given a ring during my studies. My friend gave me a ring as a present, and I had a dream a few months later that the stone was melting. It was a huge synthetic sapphire. I still have the ring. It's a huge stone. But I had the dream that the stone was melting. So, and about 10 years later, I just saw the ring in my jewelry box, and I thought that, wow, but actually, is it like possible to make something like that? And so I thought that, wow, but why not? But, as I knew a little bit of stone cutting, I knew that you have to use the whole lap. You cannot just work on the edge or something, because you will ruin the lap. So I understood that I cannot go somewhere to a stone cutting studio and ask their machines, So I thought that what's the easiest way to try it out, So it started from there.
And then you use a selection of gemstones in your work. They're often relatively large. Is that a criteria that you use to choose the gemstones? Do you want to work quite large? Which gemstones have you been using most, and are you enjoying to work in most?
I've been mostly using, for faceting, I've been using quartz, and always like amethyst, citrine, smoky quartz, rock crystal. And the reason is very simple, because it's easy to find big crystals, and the raw material is relatively cheap. It is because when you make contemporary jewelry, and otherwise the pieces will be so small you don't really see them. It's more interesting. It gives more freedom to work with larger pieces. But I hope to move forward, because it's not that easy, actually. It's not that even in Europe, that you go to Ida Oberstein, where it's the center of gem cutting, but it's very difficult to find rough stones for somebody who comes from outside, for an outsider. So it's I think I now have some dealers, some Facebook friends or dealers, and I see their stones, the roughs that they sell, and I get more into other stones as well, like topazes or something. But it's also, there's a point why I use quartz, is that it doesn't have cleavage that much. It's the structure is so good that I can make this drops or this dripping parts. I'm not sure I can do something like this in tourmaline, or like they have to be different design. But it's let's see.
And so, yeah, I wanted to go on. In fact, yeah, the equipment to work with stone is a little bit different than, for example, working with metal. Are there any sort of techniques or pieces of equipment that you are now most fascinated by?
In general, there are two things. There's the hand toe, the flex shaft, and flat lap, because you can make facets, or you can make cabochons as well. These two things, and I think now in the past 20 years, 10, 20 years, there have come so many new things to the market, like all these sponges, for example, that have this diamond cover. Or these are the best things to make any soft shape, any soft form. You cannot really use a machine to take away the material, but to make a big or whatever, soft form, it has to be done by hand. There's no other way. It's from gemstones to large boats. It's done by hand, actually. All this to have a perfect curve, it's done by hand. This is the principle, I think, that one should follow. What else? It's possible to start with very little. It's especially if people start it if you want to be creative. You don't know what comes out. Being creative means that you don't have you don't know the result. It can fail, and I don't think many people can afford to put very much money into some things that they can fail, and maybe there's no money coming back, or it's maybe they won't cut another stone. But I think now it's very easy to start from like very easily, not to have much equipment, a flex shaft, a few diamond bits, and then the sponges. You can cut these sponges, glue them with super glue to. That's what I do actually. I cut the discs from the sponges, and I glue them on rubber discs. The small rubber discs, and attach them to flex shaft, and they make very good carving tools. You discover things, but and when you know what you're doing already, then you know what you need for your next thing. You be creative.
Yeah. And so if anyone's getting started with sort of learning this from scratch, is there any books or any resources that you recommend to review, or is it really a matter of get some bits together and try and start going?
There are some maybe faceting, yes, there are a lot of books, but it's very much about stone cutting is the experience. Now with these precision machines and the development of a faceting machine over the centuries has been how to hold a stone in the right positions so that the facet meets a lap at the same angle every time. And so it's easy, you have a faceting diagram where all the angles are written, all the indexes are written, and you follow the diagram and you cut it, you go finer and finer, and then you polish a stone. So it's easy. If you follow the instruction, you will get a stone and works like that. But then there are thousands of small things that just come with experience. What's the pressure with a stone? How it's still stuck on the top so that it won't fly away? How to avoid scratches? They don't always come from some dust or impurities. They come from out of nowhere, and which paste to use, in which speed the machine you should run the machine. So that all comes with the experience, and I think that can easily take 10 years.
In my interpretation of your work, I feel your work sort of challenges the materiality of gemstones. There is this sort of a bit of a trick element to it because they look molten, but they are of course solid, or they look like they've bent, but they are of course rigid materials. So is that something that is important in your work, or is that an interpretation you are happy other people have? Or
I think it's fun to make some pieces that you think don't exist or you haven't seen this before. So kind of it's interesting to go through this process and to make something visible that wasn't visible before. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this trick. It's not the trick itself that much. Just to make some crazy stuff.
Yeah, and in a way challenging what others think or what might be impossible, and then pushing that.
Yes, and for example, there are some boundaries, of course. Challenges. Like for example, it's very hard. It's almost impossible to make the border between materiality and the void softer. there's always kind of a hard and very certain border. And so only maybe a piece of cotton, cotton ball where we don't see, but then it's soft. You cannot really, okay, you can say you wear it, but it's not the same thing. So, but how can you kind of how can you make the material so that it vanishes in the air and kind of becomes invisible? So that's what I've tried to do with my nephrite pieces, with the brushstroke really, and at the same time that it's not like sharp as a knife blade. Or
do you make lots of models and tests, or when you settle for a piece, or are you quite quick?
I think I observe, it doesn't really matter if I take another material to make a drop, and instead of that, I can carve the drop in stone as a first place. There's no much difference. To understand the nature of a drop, you cannot even take photos. Okay, you can go through photos on internet, but it's more like observing, because to get the essence of it, you have to get the appearance, the image of a drop. It's not that much how it is, physically or on photograph, but just to have the impression, to have the same impression. Like, for example, sometimes in some surfaces, I made this onyx water ripples. On the first stone, I started polishing it, and I found that it's absolutely not, everything was lost, because even if the water surface itself is polished, and it has some kind of luster on water, but it doesn't match the luster on onyx. So I left the matte, and it's totally different, but it works in this way.
And do you see a sort of continuation in your pieces as you continue making them, the ideas in different shapes, different materials? Is there sort of a growth in the experimentation, or are they all just different takes on the same starting point?
I hope there's growth. Of course, I hope there's growth. With some new things, when you see the jewelry piece, it doesn't seem that there's a big change in between, like two pieces or something. They seem to be similar, but sometimes it's a huge change it's a huge technical challenge. It takes like new equipment to make this water ripples or this or that. When I have discovered a new method, or not discovered, but invented a new method how to do this or that, then that's the fun part, to make variations on it, because every stone is still different. They're all unique pieces, every stone, and every particular stone is different. So it's fun. Every next stone is better anyway, and kind of you develop, and if I get tired of it, I move on, I move on to some other things. And because the stone cutting so repetitive, so there's like there's always time to think of new things and new ideas. So I have new drawings, and then like ideas for years ahead.
Yeah, so by being in the process yourself, you get new ideas. Would you ever consider taking on someone who does some of the work for you, or is in fact doing the work very much part of the process?
Oh, it's a constant. I constantly think about it. I still do everything myself, but maybe it's not that important in a way. In general, I don't think it's like necessary that every facet is faceted by me or something. There are processes, there are steps that I would love to be in control of. Maybe this pre-shaping, the pre-cut, kind of what will be, how it will be. But then there are certain steps that can easily be done by somebody else. But it's difficult. I think it's also difficult to find apprentices.
In general, sort of, what do you think, we kind of touched upon this already, but just maybe briefly, what do you think really inspires your work? Because you mentioned you had a dream. Does that happen a lot, that you dream something and then make what you dream, or does it come from other places?
Yeah, I try to find unconscious inspiration to my work. I don't like to kind of construct the ideas. Yeah, I try to avoid the conscious process.
And then you are represented by galleries and have won prizes. What do you feel are sort of the best channels for a contemporary jewelry artist like yourself to get your work out there?
I've been really lucky. Yeah, with the prices and everything, I've been really lucky. But that was my way how to start. I think when I finished my studies, when I graduated, to send my work to jury exhibitions. And when I was accepted, it's already a line in your CV. And from one selected exhibition, maybe somebody invites you to another, and so that's how you start building your network.
What do you think is sort of the most challenging part if you look at your journey as a jewelry designer? What are the challenges to think about when you start a career like this?
I think it is the uncertainty. People often think or have this romantic feeling about being creative, and that it's something that our artistic life is about being creative, which is true. You have to be creative, but it means you have to be creative all the time. It's a challenge. It's not that much of a advantage. That's one part, and the other is the uncertainty, unstable income. Well, I was lucky. I didn't. I was not responsible for anybody, So I was lucky in the beginning, and I didn't have expensive hobbies except jewelry. But just the instability.
And if you found any methods of managing this so that you don't feel overwhelmed by it?
It's a good question. It's I think it's the biggest challenge an artist actually has. Of course it's the challenges inside an artist. How to with the artistic choices and others. But that's about finding himself or herself. It's just the journey inside, and letting everything else go. That's the fun part. And I think these other challenges, of the outside world, they're normal. You can do many artists cannot do without them. It's like sorry, but like being a circus animal, that they they only do their things because they're starving. And that's terrible, but it is the same way with artists too, I think. I know it's rude to say, but in a certain level, I think I don't see many millionaires out there making great art. And so it's both the inner and outer need. And when you continue with the same thing, you become so good in it, or it opens, the inner need goes so big that you don't really know anything else how to, or there's no other things you are as good as in your path that you've taken. That's why you continue, to move on.
I mean, in a way, what you're saying is that the pull of the inner journey that you're on warrants the external pressures, and that you will somehow find ways, and maybe there's a bit of trust there. And
Yeah, I think it's the trust in yourself. It just builds up with time and with positive experiences. That's why it's good to send your things out there in juried exhibitions, and that's what people don't see, is that the rejections. Everybody gets rejected. For every positive answer, maybe there's like 4 or 5 rejections. It's just move on. It's normal.
Yeah, it's really good to hear from someone who we see is very successful. I have one last question for you. Sort of, what's in store for the future? You already said that there might be some new materials on the horizon. Is there anything else you're working on that we can look forward to seeing in the near future?
Yeah, I think new materials. If I get a chance to work with new materials, that's really fun. Because I think other materials, the price for one rough crystal can be like 10 times higher, 20 times higher. So it's a difference.
And you're also currently in a show. Maybe we can mention this as well if people want to go and see it. Until when and where is it happening?
The name of the show is A Matter of Time, and it takes place in Stockholm in Platina Gallery, and it's on till 26th of February. So if you happen to go there, have a look. If you're not that close, take a look at their website. It's platina.se. And I will publish a newspaper. It's a catalog, but in a form of a newspaper, matter of time, and that will be out. I think in a few weeks. So maybe from my Facebook or Instagram page, you can find it.
Working as an independent jewelry designer and maker can be full on, and pushing the boundaries of a medium might seem like a big ask, but Julia Maria shows that it's possible, and her inspirational work really captures the imaginations and stimulates a debate. For sharing your insights into your practice and work, I would like to thank you a lot, Julia Maria. We are really incredibly grateful for your time and very much look forward to seeing what you do next. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
So next month I'll be joined by another guest, so watch this space to find out who it is. But for now, this was Sophie Boons for the BAJ podcast episode titled The Poetry of Carved Gemstones with Julia Maria Künnap. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.